We need people to understand our history and how beautiful it is, because if we destroy it and we let these psychos come in and change our whole system, we won't have any of those rights and freedoms that we've enjoyed for so long throughout our history. And that's all going to be gone. And I believe it's worth fighting for.
Avi Mini back in Melbourne, and to be honest, I haven't been excited about something happening in our city for a while. I am today, and I've got a special guest, a close friend of Rebel News, a freedom fighter, a real patriot, and somebody that's standing up for our values, who's running an event this month that I'm actually going to endorse. And I haven't endorsed many events lately because of some of the characters behind it. Nick, forget me explaining it. What are you doing?
So a group of us from all over Australia have put together this idea of running these Australia-wide rallies called Put Australia First. The idea is that we get everyday Australians coming together to not just protest, definitely not with anger, but more of an event where we can celebrate Australia, because we need to be proud of our Australian history, our heritage, and all the beautiful things that we have. And if you look at the world today, especially in Melbourne, Sydney as well is pretty bad, you will see these destroyers of civilization in various forms going around, literally destroying our culture, our history, everything. You'll see the pro-Palestinian groups in the city where they've got the Australian flag with the Union Jack cut out, Death to Australia placards. You'll see ISIS flags. So we need to go back to what our roots are. There's a lot of people that love Australia and love our history, and a lot of them that love our history but don't even really understand how beautiful it is. So we're going to be celebrating Australia on the 29th in Sydney and on the 30th in Melbourne. It was going to be the 30th in Sydney as well, but we got told that we weren't able to run one on the 30th because there was another event planned, which was one of those events that hates Australia. Which I call these people the destroyers of civilization. So because they were going to potentially be violent towards our group, we were told that we can't run our event.
So this is one of the pro-Palestinian protests that we've seen every week for 2 years now. They, even though they're doing it every single week and you wanted one event, they were given preference.
They were given preference, yeah.
In Australia?
In Australia.
Where you're just trying to celebrate this country?
Yes, yes. So that was in Sydney.
But I just want to sit on that a second, because to me that's wild. When you want to hold an event celebrating our country, you're told you can't do it on that day because to make room for people that want to gather to destroy this country.
Yeah.
How does that make any sense?
It makes no sense at all, but you've got to understand that, and this is part of the, because there's three reasons why, like, main topics for this rally. One of them is the mass immigration, digital ID, cost of living, cost of energy, but what underpins most of this is a cultural removal, which we see with, so the cultural Marxism I just think of as an eraser, erasing our history, and what they're doing with the mass immigration is they're bringing people in that don't appreciate our values, or maybe they don't even understand our values, and that dilutes our values. And as this has been going on it's been going on for well over a decade, we're seeing our culture being eroded to the point in which we literally have even just young Australian people that have grown up here having no understanding of why we have freedom of speech, why we have freedom of assembly, why we have the freedom to protest. I mean, this is all biblical stuff. Now, I'm a biblical Christian, as you know, and I have an understanding of where all of those rights and freedoms that we enjoy in this country come from. I understand where they come from. And it's hard for me to see all of these people destroying it, and the hypocrisy of, like, the woke left as they're siding with these jihadi people in the city every single week with hatred towards our culture while they protest, not understanding that the protesting that they're doing actually comes from Bible verses. That's where we get it from. That's where protesting came from. And we had a whole Protestant protesting Reformation, right? There's a whole history, and they don't understand any of it, and they're using these rights and freedoms to destroy our culture and our heritage. And if you look at, like, places like Poland, where their government is defending their culture, because the cultural backbone of a country is its strength. It's not political, it's not anything else, it's the culture. If the people all believe that these are the right things to do and they're the wrong things to do, which we used to have some coherency there, now we don't. Now we have people waving ISIS flags. We have, in the city, I've seen it with my own eyes in Melbourne, where you've got these pro-Palestinian groups with Australian flags with the Union Jack cut out. Now that's the Christian symbol. That's one of the most prominent Christian symbols, and that's where we get so many of these rights and freedoms. I mean, I'll give you some examples, just for those that might be watching that don't understand. Why do we have equality before the law? Well, that's because the Bible says that that God's not a respecter of persons and he shows no partiality. That's where we get that idea that we're all equal for the law. Why do we have, equality between the genders? And I'm not talking about this woke leftist version, but equality before the genders, that comes from a number of Bible verses. And you can actually look this up historically where this all comes from. You've got, there's neither Jew nor Gentile, there's neither bond nor free, there's neither male or female, all are one in Christ Jesus. I mean, this is in Galatians chapter 3. Now, you don't have to be a Christian to appreciate these things, because I know a lot of people that appreciate these rights and freedoms, and even though they're not Christians, they say, I can see that Christianity has given us so much, and that's given us prosperity. So I'm looking at it from that perspective. A lot of people are looking at it from another perspective. Maybe they're just looking at the memories they used to have, and they're seeing their country destroyed. I didn't grow up seeing thousands of Islamic people in the city circling around a cathedral, beating their chests and doing martyrdom chants. I didn't grow up with that, but I see it now, and my children are growing up with that, and I don't want them to grow up and think that that's normal. I want them to understand that we abolished slavery in the West. We have freedom of speech because we have principles that inspired us, that liberated us from what a lot of these other parts of the world are still stuck, and the West has maintained these for so long. But I can see now there's a big push to destroy them, and it's two-pronged. It's the mass immigration, but it's also, and we're not against people immigrating, but it has to be values-based. But it's also the Marxism that we see, which is the removal of all of those underpinning principles that enabled us to have the prosperity we have. And that's been taken away from us very quickly. And that's why we see, these unholy alliances of queers for Palestine and woke leftists and feminists teaming up with extreme jihadis in the city while they burn flags and they have placards that say death to Australia.
Now, you're not the only one running kind of rallies behind the Australian flag. What's different about what you're doing and those other ones that I've been very careful not to endorse because I do know some of the characters behind them and I won't get behind them? But what's the difference for people at home, and why should they come to yours if they've avoided those other ones?
Well, it's just the people that are behind these other ones. We're not going to be, and I'm not saying everyone behind these other ones are bad, but there's been some unsavoury people that have really extreme views. Some of them have had Nazi views, and we don't want anything to do with that. We're going to have a very strong security team to make sure that we don't have any issues with these groups, because it's really important that people are safe and that they can bring their family.
So if Nazis rock up,
we're going to have to deal with them.
You're not going to allow them in your crowd?
No.
What would you say to people that question, well, I thought you were Mr. Freedom of Speech?
No, freedom of speech has limitations. I can't go up to people and coerce people to kill somebody. Okay, there's limitations. Same as freedom of religion. If we have a religion that sacrifices children, we're not going to allow that. Okay, so there's always limitations to these things, and it's just got to be reasonable.
And they can hold their own event.
They can hold their own event, which I think is
freedom of speech. To be honest, I always found that a funny argument. I know the last event that you did, and a Nazi came and you kicked him out. People were like, "Oh, I thought he was Mr. Freedom of Speech." I was like, "No, freedom of speech meant you can go over there and do your own event." Here, where we're running our own thing, we're not going to let you coerce it for your actually un-Australian views.
Remember, or just hijack it.
Died.
They fought him.
They fought, bled and died, defeating your ideology. Why do you think today you're going to come to my event where we're celebrating the people that killed your ideology?
And it's so interesting because the Nazi ideology, one of the guys was saying, we are Christians. They can't be. They're completely, the idea that one racial group's superior to the other, that's not biblical at all. We're going to be doing everything we can to obviously we can't stop people that might hold those views being there. We're not going to know who they are, but if we see a mob of people dressed a certain way promoting those ideas, we'll be dealing with them.
Now, this week, the government has backpedaled, the Victorian government I'm talking about, has backpedaled on their ban on masks at protests.
Oh, right.
My question to you is, are you guys going to come masked?
No. We're proud of what we stand for, so we're happy to have our faces.
Will you accept people in your crowd masked?
Well, if people, well, I mean, I would definitely be looking at people. I mean, because look, some people will wear masks, I think, for their own safety. There might be some extraneous variables there. But if you see a mob of people masked, then we're going to have to deal with it. We're going to have to go and, go up to the people and ask them why you're masked, and we're going to ask them to remove the mask, and we'll see what happens and what response we get.
Why do you think the Victorian government is allowing now masks?
So I want to touch on this point. I don't believe that our government's stupid at all. I think they know exactly what they're doing. And now, if you were to get a mathematician, and I'd like to be able to maybe run this experiment where you get a really good mathematician or a team of them, and you look at all of the policies that these governments have been making consistently and go, what are the odds or the chance that they would make this many consistently bad decisions that would destroy our society? And I reckon that would be like it would be like 1 to the power of some ridiculous number, because if it was all happening by chance, we would sometimes have something good happening, and it's almost never that anything good happens. It's always negative, 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 destructive, destructive, which shows that there is an agenda to destroy our society and our culture. And that's why you get politicians from places like Poland and Viktor Orban from Hungary speaking about this, even Trump speaking about this, right? Even the Pope, right? And I'm not a Catholic, even he's talking about this as being like an invasion, and that these policies are there to destroy our society. So it's time to fight back, to stand up and defend our culture, which is the foundation that we have. It's the foundation that they've removed from our children, and they're filling their minds with all this other garbage, all this climate change garbage, all this this hatred of this Western hatred, like we're all colonizers, we haven't brought anything to the world. And I would say that there is so much beauty that has come through the West, that has been a light to the rest of the world. I think that's why they want to get rid of it. Because if you were a communist and you were a Marxist, you would hate that, because you have a different agenda. So we need people to understand our history and how beautiful it is. Because if we destroy it and we let these psychos come in and change our whole system, we won't have any of those rights and freedoms that we've enjoyed for so long throughout our history. And that's all going to be gone. And I believe it's worth fighting for.
So what would you say to people that are worried, though, but that they support your message, they love Australia, they want to get behind you, but they have seen what happens in the city sometimes by those masked people, and now that the government has given them a licence to come masked and cause trouble, because the only reason why you'd come to an event masked in a mob is to cause trouble and try to get away with it, what would you say to people that are nervous and think, well, I don't want to get punched in the face, I don't want to get hurt, I don't want to be targeted by a violent, keffiyeh-wearing, mask-wearing mob?
Yeah, we're going to have a very strong security team. So we've got our peacemakers. We've had a peacemaker security team for I think about 5 years now. It's a pretty strong team. I've got a lot of guys that know how to handle themselves that'll be there. We'll be radioed up and we'll be ready for action if we're needed. We'll do everything we can to de-escalate the situation. But ultimately, if people are violent towards us, we will be able to deal with that, because we have a very strong team and we'll have a very strong of men.
Toxic masculinity on the streets of Melbourne is what you're telling me.
It's coming back, that toxic.
Okay, so 29th in Sydney, and you told me something about the grass off camera.
Yeah.
What happened there? Just so we...
So the Sydney Council, they refused to give a permit, because I think they do permits now, for a stage in the gardens, right? So, and their reason being was that because of climate change, the stage would affect the grass and it might not grow back. I kid you not, that was their excuse, or their reasoning for not giving us a permit to have a stage.
So first they moved it to the 29th, you had to move it a day earlier to fit in with the Islamo-Marxist Unholy
Alliance.
And then on the Saturday itself, you can't have a stage there because climate change has ruined the grass.
That's right.
But you're still going ahead in Sydney.
We're still doing it.
You're still doing it. All right, details?
So in Melbourne, we're going to be Sunday, we're going to be starting at Flinders Street Steps, and we're going to be walking down to the Flagstaff Gardens. It's going to be 12 p.m. And 12 p.m. we're going to be meeting in Sydney at Belmore Park on the Saturday. So Saturday in Sydney, Belmore Park, 12 p.m. Sunday, Melbourne, 12 p.m. at Flinders Street Steps.
We'll be there to cover it.
Awesome, thank you.
Guys, if you're as excited as I am about this event, make sure to like, comment, but most importantly, share this video and the news far and wide. Let people in Melbourne and Sydney, for now, you might be adding other locations. We'll keep you up to date, but Melbourne and Sydney, encourage people to come. And if you're not in Melbourne and Sydney, guess what? You can follow along. Go to followrv.com. Make sure to subscribe to the mailing list and follow me across all platforms, especially on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel because we'll be going live. We'll give you a live, on the ground, unedited, raw reporting of what actually happens there on the day. We'll cover all the speeches, but we'll also talk to the average Aussie battler, which I'm excited. I love hanging out with them. We did it at the last Proud Australia protest. Even though Nazis were trying to hijack it, we got to speak and show the world who the real Aussies are. Here, you actually have a place where it's about you and it's about, most importantly, our values and this great country. Followrv.com.